Joining us now is former federal prosecutor Neama Rahmani. Neama, always great to have you here. What made the district attorney up the charges to first-degree murder? What sort of evidence did he have to present to the grand jury?
Elizabeth, I'm not surprised that we're seeing these terrorism charges and first-degree murder charges, but it is a risky move. And terrorism requires either an intent to intimidate the public or influence government policy. And New York has a more narrow first-degree murder law than most states. So it does result in an increased potential penalty. It's 20 to 25 years without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder, and only 15 with the possibility of parole for second-degree murder. So I understand why Bragg's office did this, but now it raises the question as to why Mangione did this. And if I'm prosecuting this case, I want to keep all that evidence out because that raises the possibility of jury sympathy and potentially even jury nullification.
Right. The case he's going to have to build is going to be he was on a crusade against these ghoulish healthcare insurance companies. And guess what? A sizable number of Americans are frustrated and furious with their insurance companies.
Yes, so it raises the element of why, and you have to get into Mangione's intent and his history. So it brings in a lot of evidence that otherwise could have been excluded. There's also one additional wrinkle here. Terrorism is also a federal crime, whereas most murders are not. So now there's the possibility that the Trump-appointed Attorney General comes in and takes this case away from Alvin Bragg. And we know how the president-elect feels about the Manhattan District Attorney. So there might be a federal component as well now that we're seeing these terrorism charges.
Yeah, we also know he's condemned what Luigi Mangione allegedly did, so he has strong feelings about it. You know, I'm curious, the DA, in announcing the terrorism, talked about the fact that it was meant to inspire fear. And we just heard the police commissioner, really denounce these wanted posters that went up around Manhattan. And many of the nation's top chief executives are certainly afraid right now. There's a deck of playing cards circulating online with the faces of other CEOs. They could be targeted as well.
They could be. And I've been doing this a long time, more than 2 decades. I have never ever seen an accused murderer with this much sympathy, this much support on traditional and social media. And it's just something that we may never see again. So obviously in a criminal case, you have to get 12 out of 12 jurors unanimously to convict. And this case presents a very real possibility of a holdout juror, a stealth juror that tries to get on this panel to send a message to executives, the healthcare industry. So again, we're really playing with fire here as far as the prosecution is concerned by adding these charges.
Do you think that support that Luigi Mangione currently, I hate to say it, enjoys among some quarters of America, will fade once more information comes out about him and his background? I mean, this was a child of privilege. He was born into a family worth reportedly tens of millions, if not $100 million. Ivy League educated, private schools, quit his job to go, practice yoga and read books because he could afford to. Versus Brian Thompson, the man he's accused of killing, self-made young man, not young man anymore, but self-made man from a tiny town, worked his way through college, blue-collar background. I mean, if you're talking about an everyman here, it sounds like it might, Brian Thompson fits the bill.
I'm not saying I agree with it, but in Mangione, you have someone who's rich, who's smart, who's good-looking, and is now famous. So I'm not surprised that he has this fan club and he's a hero of sorts. So he is somewhat of a sympathetic defendant. Again, not saying I agree with it, but he does present a real potential problem at trial. And now we're going to get into all of this and the evidence that's come out, his manifesto, his back surgery, his experimenting with psychedelics. It does appeal to a certain percentage of the population. And now all that's fair game by charging the terrorism and trying to escalate this to first-degree murder, whereas could have been a simple case. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there, Elizabeth.
Yeah, hey, super quick, he's hired an expensive, pretty well-known defense attorney here in New York City. Word is she's going to drop fighting extradition. There's a hearing in Pennsylvania on Thursday afternoon. He could be on his way back to New York City by Thursday night.
I think that's a smart move by his lawyer, Karen Friedman. She knows that extradition, especially from state to state, is really just a question of identity.
Yeah.
Are you the person that's named in the warrant? So it's not worth fighting. She's going to focus her attention on those New York charges.
All right, Neama Rahmani, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Talk to you soon.